Skull and Bones, week 9. John Hartley and Jeff Peterfee here with you, and in person. I get to see Jeff's lovely mustache now.
It is Movember.
It is. I will not be doing it. I have some client trips I have to go on, so I
sauce.
Can't do that.
What's wrong with having a mustache?
It's not as professional as clean shaven. For me, at least, because mine looks like garbage. You could probably get away with it because yours always looks
I just look
good.
like a firefighter.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody loves firefighters. That's why they have calendars.
Everyone should love firefighters.
So
Heroes.
Skull and Bones is our Vikings and Browns podcast. It's released every week on Friday. If you're looking for the headlines episode, that comes out every Thursday. Not the last 2 weeks, but this week it did. And Jeff, how do you want to do this? Because there was some big news this week.
I'll talk Vikings. And then I'll let you go.
All right. So
I'll talk about last week against the Saints briefly.
Yeah, and then we'll get to the big news.
And then you can go.
Okay.
I went to the game.
You did.
In Minneapolis.
Indeed.
It is a long drive from Columbus to Minneapolis.
It was quite long, yeah.
It's about 10 and a half to 11 straight from Columbus to Minneapolis, but we went via Toledo to pick up some friends and drop some friends off. So it was 12 hours of driving after the game. It was a lot of driving.
Did you leave directly after the game, like in the evening?
No, we left Monday morning.
Right.
It was a night game. No. We did that last time, though, and that was rough.
Yeah.
We got back in Columbus at like 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
But went to the game. It was a good game. It was fun. There was a lot of tailgating pre-game, so we missed maybe the first drive. It took a while to get into the stadium, but we missed maybe kickoff, maybe the first drive. We didn't miss much if we missed anything. So got up to our seats, up way further away than if we were watching it on TV. But Minnesota was dominating the whole game. The Vikings played better throughout the entire game. There was one huge mistake. Adam Thielen fumbled a ball inside the red zone. Going in to score, that was returned to the opposite red zone, and the Saints scored 1 or 2 plays later. And then that essentially ended the half. And then Stephon Diggs stopped on one of his routes, and Kirk Cousins threw an interception that was returned for a touchdown. So take away those 2 plays, a 10-point loss, who knows where the score is. No. They held Drew Brees to 120 yards passing. He threw his first interception on the season. So he was 120 yards with a touchdown and an interception. The only touchdown came on that short drive after the Thielen fumble.
Right.
So he was held in check. Michael Thomas hasn't been the same Michael Thomas he was for the first 4 or 5 games. Mm-hmm. He was kind of held in check. Alvin Kamara didn't do really anything spectacular in this game. The Vikings played one of their best games of the season despite letting up 30 points. Their defense played one of the best games of the season despite letting up 30 points on the board.
Yeah, turnovers killed them, though.
Yeah, it was just those 2 mistakes, really, and that's like a 17-point swing in a 10-point game. And that's huge, gigantic. So that's where the loss resides. Adam Thielen, let me look at my notes really quick, leads the league in receptions at 74 receptions through 8 games. 74 receptions, 925 yards. I don't have this written down. I'm going to do the mental math really quick. 148 receptions and 1,850 yards on pace for. So that's pretty good. I don't know how many touchdowns he has, so I can't tell you that stat.
Yeah.
Maybe 4.
He's definitely having a really good season.
Yes, he's the first player in Super Bowl era to start a season's first 8 games with 100-plus yards. We've been tracking that the past couple of weeks.
Yep.
Broke it against the Saints on Sunday, a 57-year-old record held by Charlie Hennigan, the 61 Oilers. Now there's a new record that he's chasing. He can own a new record. He tied this record on Sunday. New record to beat against the Lions if he gets another 100 yards. He's currently tied with the Lions' Calvin Johnson for most consecutive games
Megatron.
with 100 yards at any point in the season. So he beats that. 9 consecutive games with 100 yards. He'll be alone in all of the record books. I don't know what else he could own.
Yeah.
Maybe the all-time receptions record, which is like 140-something, isn't it? I don't know.
In one season?
That's possible, I guess.
Yeah, you said all-time, so I was like, I mean, he's got a couple years left in him. I don't think it's so early.
The single-season reception record.
Yeah.
So, and Danielle Hunter got another half sack. So
Danielle.
He's second in the league with 8.0 sacks. Aaron Donald has 10.0. We talked about this, whether or not a half sack continues that streak.
Yeah.
He got another half sack against the Saints, so the past 2 games he's gotten a half sack. Does that still count the sack streak? For my stats, it does.
Yeah.
I couldn't find it anywhere else online. So for me, it does.
I mean, really, it's just opinion, right?
Yeah.
So,
right?
yeah, I think it counts. Good.
That's my wrap up. The Vikings lost 30-20. They are now 4-3-1. Half a game back of first place in the NFC North.
So not as great as you were hoping they'd be, but still over 500.
They have a very daunting schedule ahead of them, too.
Yeah.
So that's what you get. I mean, when you finish the season in first place, you play all the other first place teams. You're going to get a hard schedule. So that's what they've got this year.
All right. So getting to the meat of Skol
now
and
go
Bones
to the Browns
this week.
The bones. Let's get to the bones, not the meat.
Yeah. The Browns started this Sunday with all of their coaches intact, and they played the Steelers in Pittsburgh. Heinz Stadium is usually not a good time for the Browns, but they started off great, and then they continued to get worse and worse. And then in the second half, Browns had -1 yards at one point with 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Then they have 5 yards with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Well,
They ended up putting 18 on the board. Their first drive was really good in the first half. Like, they started off, that was their first points off an opening drive this season.
Yeah.
And so that right there was something to get excited about. Greg Joseph missed a field goal. Greg Joseph missed an extra point. And he ends up being safe this week. He was not removed.
Not get fired.
He did not get fired. But
I think Dan Bailey missed an extra point this week.
I seem to recall that as well.
He missed a kick.
Yeah. Off the uprights, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, maybe. No, I don't remember a dong, so. I feel like I would remember any dongs.
I never forget a dong. But the Browns lose. What was the final score? I was on my way to the airport, 33-18. And you were watching at a Browns backers bar.
It was.
I told you, I'm leaving. I'm going to the airport. Send me text updates. That's when it was still kind of close.
Yeah.
I think at that point it was 6-14 or maybe even 12-14. And then the Steelers started to pull away, and I was like, don't text me any more updates. And you did anyway.
I did.
Because you're a good sport. The Browns had 6 points in the first quarter, in the third quarter, and in the fourth quarter. So final score, 33-18. Baker Mayfield didn't have a terrible game. He had 1 interception, 2 touchdowns. But
he need more than 180 yards.
He's not been set up
to be
for
successful.
Success.
That's true.
And, you saw the frustration for him in this game, and he just got beat up so many times. I don't have the sack count in front of me, but it was not good. So the tackle play has been atrocious, and suddenly on Monday, we're sitting around.
2 sacks.
2 sacks?
2 sacks for 17 yards.
That's actually not as bad as it has been, but I think they still sit atop the list with 33 sacks.
Knockdowns or hurries or anything. So.
At one point, his knee looked like it was injured, but he ended up coming back into the game. Sitting around on, I forget if this was Monday or Tuesday. No, Monday this happened.
Monday morning.
We find out Hugh Jackson has been fired.
Because it was Monday morning because everyone was asking, is Cleveland going to fire 2 coaches in one day?
Yeah. So Hugh Jackson gets fired. We start thinking about that. I start looking into it, and I'm not that surprised. I'm sitting at work, and suddenly my phone's blowing up. Todd Haley got fired as well.
Right. So we were driving back during all of this that was happening.
Yeah.
And John, my other friend John that I went to the game with from Toledo, he is a big Browns fan, which is why we're at the Browns backers bar. He had it on his phone. Oh, Hugh Jackson got fired.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, well, that was kind of expected. And Todd Haley's going to be the assistant coach or the interim head coach.
Yep.
It's a logical decision. He's got the most experience. He's going to move up, take that interim head coach. About an hour or two later, we read, oh, Todd Haley's been fired.
Yeah.
So then we were really confused.
Now who's going to be head coach? And everybody thought Al Saunders because he's got the respect and he's old and all that.
It was someone, like a wide receiver coach or something that was briefly
Al
mentioned.
Saunders,
That's Al
yeah.
Okay. And then so So then that didn't happen.
Yep. And it turns out Greg Williams is going to be the interim head coach. Greg Williams, who the Cincinnati Bengals local paper decided to point out, the Bounty Gate coach.
Bounty Gate.
Right.
Well, yeah.
No, nobody else mentioned that
Why
when
not?
they mentioned Greg Williams.
Why not?
Why
They
would
should.
you? There's no.
Because he's the Bounty Gate coach.
How far ago was that?
That's what I said.
10 years.
That's what I said when he got hired. I said, "Oh,
when he
Greg
gets
Williams
hired as the defensive coordinator,
must have
because
put a bounty
that's
on
the
Todd
position.
Haley's coach."
Regardless, this is now the first mid-season firing that has happened in quite a while, but it is the 6th in a row where the coach has been fired after the second Steelers game of the season.
Yes.
So that's a weird streak. You have Hugh Jackson fired, Mike Pettin fired, Rob Chudzinski fired, Pat Shurmur fired, and Eric Mangini fired, and Romeo Crennel fired. So Greg Williams becomes the 20th head coach of the Browns in their history. Also the 10th coach since they came back in 1999. So from 46 all the way up to 1998, they had 10 coaches.
Yeah, 96 or 4, whenever they left.
They've now blasted through that in just about 20 years. So that's pretty insane to me. You have to go back to Bill Belichick from 91 to 95 to get a coach around for more than 4 years. And I was initially like, I don't really want Todd Haley to be the head coach. Like he seems like a bit of a jerk. And, the offense isn't running well, and this is as good as they were last season in terms of offensive production per play, but 4.9 yards with Deshaun Kaiser. And so I was not looking forward to that necessarily.
There's some rumors Todd Haley was running into the ground purposely to get Hugh fired.
Yep. And so then we find out that Todd Haley is getting fired, and it was like, oh, well... Okay, so this is a situation where, John Dorsey, I think, has total control at this point. I think he's come into this and told Jimmy Haslam, like, look, man, I will change this. I will turn this around. You got to just let me do my thing. And I think he was willing to go with Hugh Jackson this season. He knew that at the end of the season, he would fire Hugh Jackson, and he'd find the coach that he wants, but he didn't expect this amount of dysfunction. And so you have Todd Haley and Hugh Jackson, who are just butting heads the entire season. We saw it in Hard Knocks, right? And you and I even talked about this.
Yeah.
I said, I don't like that as a management move, where...
I'm the guy. You listen to me when he did that speech?
Essentially said, get on the bus. I'm the head coach. I make the decisions. I didn't like it because it shows that you can't get control any other way. Like, you can't just hear Todd Haley out about his thoughts and figure it out with him. You are instead just saying... I have the seniority. I have the high ground. Like, listen to me. Fall in line. Do what I say. And I think Hugh Jackson got away with that last year and the year before. But this year, it finally...
It's stronger assistants.
Right. And so he was trying to strong-arm Todd Haley, and I think Todd Haley resisted a lot of what Hugh Jackson was saying because he himself was auditioning for the head coaching position. And so both of them were so interested in their own selves that I think John Dorsey was just like, look, man, I got to let you both go. I don't want either of you on this team infecting these young players because it is a young team, and that's okay. But you have Baker Mayfield, who's proven that he is probably your best bet moving forward as a quarterback, and you can say what you want. He performs pretty well in the second half, but defenses, yes, they start to loosen up a little bit because, the game isn't necessarily close, and so he's putting up these big points. I think you gotta find a guy that is going to be a good fit for Baker Mayfield and who isn't scared of reporting to John Dorsey. So John Dorsey is going to be the guy.
So we're just doing a wait and see on Greg Williams?
I think there's no way that John Dorsey endorses him as a head coach
for next year.
Right. Unless somehow Greg Williams pulls every game the remainder of the season out. There's no way.
The Browns fire 2 head coaches in one season?
Well, interim head coach doesn't count.
Will Greg Williams be stripped of his interim title?
There's no way that you fire Greg Williams partway through the season.
Why not?
Even if you lose out,
why not?
It's just known that it's not going to go well the rest of the season.
Why not?
Everybody's like, oh, you should wait until the bye to fire your head coach. It's like breaking up with a girl. There's never a good time.
Band-Aid off.
And especially as public as they were making all these things, like in press conferences, and Hugh Jackson was saying, I got to get more involved in the offense. Like, it's not going to be good for any of the players. And so now you have Freddie Kitchens, the running backs coach, is the offensive coordinator. So he's going to be
going to get Duke the ball 45 times.
That's what he said. I will say they are making a lot of jokes. Like Greg Williams and Freddie Kitchens are making a lot of jokes here in the wake of Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley being gone. Greg Williams is a coach.
I like that.
He's kind of old school, hard-nosed.
Until he put a bounty on Brett Favre's ankle.
Again, old school. You telling me that never happened before Greg Williams did it? That Greg Williams is the only guy in history to ever put a bounty on other players?
No, I'm not saying that.
All right. So
when did I say that?
You didn't, but I was just making sure that it was clear that I'm sure was happening previously. Just
I'm sure it's still happening.
Yeah. So Greg Williams,
but he got caught. So
I think Greg Williams is a good fit for now. I think he's a guy that Baker Mayfield likes well enough. I don't think Baker liked Hugh. And it goes back to the Hard Knocks thing where Hugh Jackson is slow dancing with Baker Mayfield. He's got his arms on either side of him. The whole time, Baker just looks like he's annoyed that Hugh is even talking to him. And I thought that Todd Haley kind of had the right personality to align with Baker. But it seems like Todd Haley just couldn't figure out how to use Baker in an offense.
So this might sound heartless. Did Hugh Jackson keep his job longer because of his off-the-field life coming to shambles?
I don't think so. I think he kept his job because they knew that he'd been dealt a bad hand. The 0-16 season, just like Ty Lue, do we actually give him the record that he has because of his coaching skills? Do we give the same record to Hugh Jackson because of his coaching skills? I would say with a good roster, Hugh Jackson is never going to be over 500.
Well, statistically, he is the worst coach in NFL history.
Correct.
Other than one other guy who had a worse record with the Philadelphia Eagles over like a 4 or 5 year span because he owned the team.
Correct.
So he
could not be fired. So that's one that goes in the record books, and I hope that they take his jacket that he was wearing the day he got fired and they put it in the Hall of Fame as the worst coach ever. So yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting time, and at least now the Browns have a lot of time to figure out who they want to coach the team. Whether that is Greg Williams, which I don't think it will be. I think John Dorsey's going to find his guy, and each week that we do this now, I'm going to find a new coach.
Jim Harbaugh?
That we can talk about. I will stab you. It's not going to be Jim Harbaugh. Those of you that are in Ohio saying, Urban Meyer, he's going to be the next head coach of the Browns.
Urban Meyer might not be the next head coach of the Buckeyes.
Right. He might not even be in full. He might just go sit on a porch on a cottage, like
sitting
by
on
a
the dock of the bay.
Because he's got that brain cyst. And, it's affecting his coaching now.
He says he's coming back next year. I don't believe him.
There's no way that he would ever coach the Browns. Now, some people are like, Bill Belichick is in a contract year.
No.
Bring him all back to Cleveland.
He ain't coming back.
Right. He's got such a cush job.
Who else? What other names have come out there?
Lincoln Riley is one of the big ones.
He ain't leaving Oklahoma. Filippo from Minnesota might.
Correct. He could, and he has a history with the Browns. So, honestly, he's kind of my front runner at this point.
He hasn't done much
which
for
I'd
us.
be okay with.
He hasn't done much for us. You can have
Kirk Cousins, without an offensive line, is actually playing well.
What's that have to do with DiFilippo?
He is calling plays that allow success with a bad line.
You see what Shermer did last year and what he's doing in New York?
Yeah, this offensive line is worse.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's better.
No, it's not. We looked at it, and at the beginning of the season, they were ranked the worst offensive line in the NFL.
At the beginning of the season.
Right.
Based off last year.
Yeah, and now they're even worse because they've got hurt so many times. So every week I'll have a new head coach.
The Vikings have only given up 23 sacks, all right? And the Browns are giving up 33. So
right, because the tackles are bad and Desmond Harrison can't block to save his life.
All right, let's look at it this week. Who do the Browns play this week?
Yeah, this is a time where you wish it was the bye week just so they had a week to get everything under control.
Maybe it was one of those we know we're going to lose next week. So
yeah, they're playing the Chiefs. So this is going to be Pat Mahomes going to come into Cleveland and put on a show and be like, hey, guys, here's what happens when a quarterback gets to sit for a year and learn from a different quarterback.
They tried to do it. They tried to do it with Baker.
They did.
And then Tyrod got hurt.
Well, and the best theory I heard around that is that John Dorsey wanted to sit Baker because he knew he was going to fire Hugh Jackson at the end of the year, if not sooner. Mm-hmm. And so protect him from that, protect him from having to go through a coaching change and get used to a new coach, and just kind of sit out the year, learn how the NFL works, learn how to study and prepare, all that. But I mean, I think he's gonna do much better now that Freddie Kitchens is in charge. I think Kitchens has nothing to lose, so he's not gonna hold back.
Call games like it's Madden.
He called the 4th preseason game. So
Yeah.
he's called plays for Baker before. They have a bit of a relationship. He's going to get Duke Johnson and Nick Chubb the ball more. Mm-hmm. It's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And so the frustration seems to be gone. Will they win games this season? I think they'll win a couple throughout the rest of the year. I'm not optimistic. I made a bet at the beginning of the season with my buddy Joel that the Browns will be over 8-8. And that's not going to happen.
I mean,
they could win out. They're not going to.
They have to win out, right?
They could. No, I'm not that dumb. Dog, shut up. Stop it. And so overall, I think the move is fine. I think it's okay that they fired Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley.
8-7-1. It's possible.
It is
that
possible.
Gives them 2 more losses.
8-7-1. That's the least that they have to get to be over 500.
That's what they got to get to. That's over 8-8.
So they'll be playing the Chiefs this week. I think it's a good opportunity for the offense to get back on track. Defense is going to have a rough time. Hollywood Higgins is back, which is exciting, a wide receiver for the Browns. Terrence Mitchell's cast is off, so he could be back in the next couple of weeks, potentially, after breaking his wrist. And I don't know. I'm not hopeful for a win.
I see a maximum of 3 more wins.
A max of 3 more?
Yes.
Bengals. You could beat the Bengals.
Bengals twice.
Yep.
Broncos are on there.
The Ravens.
So those 3 are definitely easily winnable games.
They got to play the Falcons. That's not going to go well.
The Falcons haven't been great this year. The Panthers haven't been great this year. And the Ravens have not been great this year. But those are all 3 better teams than the Bengals and Broncos.
If I had to give an honest
prediction, the Texans are going to smoke them.
I think the max that they win is 4 throughout the rest of the season.
That'd leave them at 6 wins.
One thing Greg Williams said at his first press conference was, at this point in my life, I don't need to make any more friends. If I wanted friends, I'd buy a Labrador. So he's not out there looking to impress anybody. He's out there. He's going to run the team the way he wants to run it. And hopefully he doesn't drive Baker Mayfield on the ground along with the entire defense where he has played Myles Garrett way too much.
The Vikings play the Lions this week. A week before their the Vikings bye week. The Lions just traded away what?
Golden Tate.
Thank you. Golden Tate.
You're welcome.
Lions just traded away Golden Tate, their leading receiver, who's getting 70% of passes thrown his way. So that's helpful against a banged-up defense for the Vikings, which, by the way, I didn't mention that against the Saints, they were without their starting strong safety, their starting cornerback, their starting linebacker, and their best defensive lineman coming off the bench.
Resilient, regardless.
Still play their best defense of the season. Stephon Diggs just announced today he is recovering from a rib injury that he sustained against the Saints. So whatever that means. He hasn't practiced all week. Dalvin Cook, quote-unquote questionable, but he's not coming back till after the bye week. The Lions, this should be a winnable game, but the Lions have not lost a game at U.S. Bank Stadium. They're 2-0 in the past 2 years. So
hey, it's undefeated, man.
It's undefeated in the stadium.
It's a big deal.
So this is one that the Vikings need to win. Gets them another win within the division. They have, of the remaining 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games. Of the remaining 8 games, yes, we're in week 9. That makes sense. 5 of which are divisional games.
Yep.
So we're facing the gauntlet here. The next 3 games are divisional games. Lions, bye week, Bears, Packers. And then you're on the road back-to-back games at Patriots, at Seahawks. So you're crossing the country there, coming back home for the Dolphins, and then you finish up with 2 more divisional games. It's not an easy end to the season. You got to play the Lions and Bears twice
for either of our teams.
Yeah, and then the Packers, which we tied in week 2, and then the Patriots and Seahawks, who have historically the past 10 years been great teams.
Yeah.
So yeah, you don't have an easy end to the season here.
One final thing about the Browns coming up this Sunday against the Chiefs.
No, I cut you off because you needed to be done with the Browns.
Well, no, this is a fun thing. It's a fun thing.
1,700 yards.
What?
Baker and Mahomes.
Oh, I wasn't going to talk about that. The fun thing is that the Browns punter is Britton Colquitt. The Chiefs punter is Dustin Colquitt.
Oh, there we go.
So this will be the 13th time that they are matched up against each other. And they got asked, who's the better tackler? And Britton, the Browns punter, said, we're both not good tacklers. He's made a few more than I, but he's also had to have some surgeries after. So we'll see. I think Britton is the better punter out of the two, but Dustin's getting up there in years, and Britton isn't afraid to tell him about it. So that'll be a fun little nugget that I'm sure they'll bring up in the broadcast once the Chiefs have put up 28 and the Browns have put up 7.
There you go.
Oh. Browns win, regardless.
The Browns will still win.
They'll come back 31-28 prediction from John Hartley. And we'll see how that goes.
It'd be a great game by Kitchens.
Yeah. Freddie Kitchens. You got a baker and you got a kitchen. You gonna make some touchdowns, baby.
I think the Vikings are 4.5 favorites against the Lions. I'll take the over.
Yeah. Chiefs are 8.5-point favorites. I will take the under. Because they're gonna lose. Browns gonna win.
All right.
Hey, look, the Cavs won their first game after firing their head coach, and the Browns will win their first game after firing their head coach, and everybody be happy, and all the fans will rejoice, and it'll be great. So until next time, I'm John Hartley.
I'm Jeff Peterfee.
Saying, go Brownies!
Skol Vikings.